Would you believe me if I told you that a fan-made comic series kickstarted an enormous resurge in the popularity and the replayability of a game series? The year was 2010 when a 4chan user by the name of Nuzlocke jump-started an incredible internet movement, giving millions of Pokémon fans a new reason to replay the older games. His comic series detailing his run of Pokémon Ruby suddenly became extremely popular. But what was so special about it? I mean, by that time Ruby was around 8 years old. Well, it wasn't just this that skyrocketed the Nuzlocke series into an internet-wide phenomena. It was the entire concept of the run itself. You see, this run was not your typical run-of-the-mill playthrough of a Pokemon game. No, not at all. There were new rules brought to the table, rules that would alter the overall experience and even the tone of the game as a whole, but I'll get to that point in a second. These new original Nuzlocke rules were simple enough. If a Pokemon faints, then it's dead for good, and you may only catch the first Pokemon that you see in each new route. No exceptions. It was also common courtesy to nickname each newly captured team member, but this was only an implied rule. Believe it or not, this new game mode per se, the Nuzlocke mode, added an immense amount of replayability to the Pokemon games. Now people had a reason to dust off those old Game Boys for reasons other than for nostalgia's sake. It was a real game changer to the Pokemon community. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Nuzlocke mode was the first instance of a widespread fan-made challenge in the Pokemon community, as well as one of the first in the gaming community as a whole. Now, after the huge spread of popularity of Nuzlocke, we've created an enormous amount of variations to this gameplay style. Wonderlock, Zombielock, Medlock, Wedlock, etc, etc, etc. They all generally play with the same core Nuzlocke principles, but add some new ones to freshen up the experience even more. It's pretty amazing to show how creative the community can get. Okay, that's cool and all, but how do these rules really change the experience, you might be wondering? Well, listen up. What do you think of when someone brings up the Pokemon games? Generally, everyone's responses would probably be somewhat unanimous. Pokemon is intended to be a lighthearted and, in some areas, even a cutesy game. If you want it in situational terms, Pokemon can play out like this. Oops, my Bulbasaur fainted, but that's okay, I can just run over to the Pokemon Center and heal up. But in a Nuzlocke run, it becomes something along the lines of this. Oops, my Bulbasaur fainted, but that's okay, I can just run over to the
Nope, your Bulbasaur is just for good.
What I'm trying to say is that the Nuzlocke run takes the fun, happy atmosphere of Pokemon and transforms it into an experience that is able to strike so many more emotional chords. It's really almost a cinematic experience that can get kind of emotional at times. There have been many instances where I've gotten disheartened from some form of media, but in mostly all those cases, it was an expected feeling, because said media was trying to utilize the pathos effect in order to get the feels out of me. But playing a Nuzlocke run is almost like taking a bite into a chocolate bar and realizing a few seconds in that someone mixed some hot sauce in there. If that makes any sense. Pokemon was not created to be an extremely emotional, heart-pounding thrill ride. At least, I don't think it was intended to be, as far as my knowledge goes, but the Nuzlocke run has actually, in many instances, drawn these emotions out of me. I'll never forget when I lost my starter in my first Nuzlocke run, my go-to Totodile, falling out the hands of Whitney's goddamn Miltank. There's never before experienced feeling of, well, actual sadness and anger as the HP counter ticked down to 0. And these feelings were completely alien for me, especially because of the fact that I was playing a Pokemon game above all things. When playing a Nuzlocke challenge, you never know what to expect, who will fall next, or who on the team will rise to the occasion. You need to play the game carefully, meticulously, and cautiously. One reckless mistake can cost you an entire party of young warriors, which is actually a very interesting concept when applied to a game like Pokemon, a game that encourages the player to build great bonds with the Pokemon in his or her party. Said emotional bond is first planted with the creation of the mandatory nickname. For me at least, such bonds are extremely rare to come across in a standard run of the game, well, because the player doesn't need to value each and every life. The penalty of fainting is much less daunting. In general, the rules just clearly pave the road for the personification of each and every Pokemon that joins the team, and it's a huge factor that goes into making these runs so entertaining to both watch and play. The player needs to value the Pokemon's lives as if they were real in order to make the run successful. You can't go out and catch a stronger Pidgey or go to the Pokemon Center and revive your fallen fighters. No, in this mode you deal with what you get and every speck of HP matters. And that's what creates those nail-biting situations that makes that adrenaline rush. So Mr. Nuzlocke, I commend you for transforming the lighthearted sunny formula of the Pokemon games into something so much more profound, and with the simplest of altercations at that. It just goes to show that any game can potentially have the power to provide unforgettable experiences, amazing stories to share, and surprisingly personal bonds with in-game entities. A game like Pokemon. So everyone out there that's made it this far in this video, I implore you to go out and try something that's out of your comfort zone. Play a genre that you've never experienced before, or maybe shake up the rules of one of your old favorites. You never know. Maybe it'll be a memorable adventure.